She is resourceful and has sacrificed for her family for many years. Our mother and father divorced when I was 14, and our mother remarried and was blessed with a wonderful husband and caring mate named Harry. When Harry and Rosetta got married, the Renaissance woman got her new hubby on the WRVA traffic helicopter before jetting off to Louisiana for their honeymoon. They traveled and had a wonderful time together. Honestly, we could not keep up with her, and nothing has changed today. Over the years, Mom worked tirelessly to care for Harry until he passed in 2012. My mother is not afraid to step out of her comfort zone. Here are a few of her accomplishments. In 1958, she was instrumental in starting the Family Elementary School PTA, which was the year the school opened for African American students. Although she was asked to be the PTA president the first year, she suggested someone else as she felt she wasn't ready. This may have been her one and only hesitation in life. Instead, she organized the first teachers' luncheon and chaired the dental committee. This is what we call detail-oriented. Well, she was definitely ready when Mosby Junior High School, now known as Martin Luther King Middle School, opened September 1964, where she became the first PTA president and served 2 terms. The PTA was where community leaders got their start. With a young baby at home in the early 60s, our mother picketed the local stores where people of color were not allowed to eat or secure employment. And yes, she got on that bus to Washington, D.C. in 1963 and participated in the March on Washington and held her banner high. Later in 1968, after the assassination of Martin Luther King, to protect our home, she instructed us to water down the house to keep the rioters from setting our house on fire. That's a warrior mom right there. She has been involved in the community for years. She volunteered with the Maymount Foundation, Cancer Society, Meals on Wheels, Richmond on the James. Her involvement in civic organizations over the years include Crusade for Border Voters, League of Women Voters, Delaware Junior Women's Club, the Young Women's Christian League, Capital City Republican Women's Club, and Huguenot Republican Women's Club. She has worked as a voter precinct judge and was deputized to register voters. Her proudest moment was an appointment by Governor Dalton to serve on the Virginia Commission on the Status of Women. She loves to entertain. In our home, she hosted political teas for local politicians, spaghetti dinners for family, friends, and coworkers. Then she created theme parties like the Widow's Luncheon after Harry passed, Soup Sundays with Rosetta, the Newlywed Party, Cousins Brunch, and the last one called Grandmothers and Granddaughters Tea Party. She has been a member of the Mount Tabor Baptist Church over 45 years and chaired the Floral Ministry Committee. She was also a committee member for the Women's Auxiliary of the Military Retirees Club. Her energy is daunting. I leave you with the last stanza of the poem, Don't Quit, one that she's recited many times over the years. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt. And when you never can tell how close you are, it may be near when it seems afar. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worse that you mustn't quit. Without further delay, I give you the person that says old age is not for cowards, Rosetta Allen Baugh.
Good evening, everybody.
Okay.
You know, with what she has said, in my life, I have encountered many, not being a professional person, I have held or had many menial jobs. And going on a job, and if there's a white person there, they automatically think they're your boss. They become the boss the minute they walk in the door. So I've encountered a lot of that stuff. One of the cute ones when I was doing days work, and somebody get you to come and work for them, and they say, "Oh, my house is such a mess because my girl I had quit." And it took me a while to figure that one out. After I went 2 or 3 weeks and worked for them and worked like a horse, because later on, after you get it all straight, it won't be much for you to do. Then they would say, "Look at my old girl is coming back." They never had an old girl. The house had gotten so bad they couldn't stand it themselves, and they just needed somebody to clean it up. So I've been through a few of those. And I really think that this poem, The Negro Mother, covers my life. Tell you a few things that have happened to me along the way. My mind go back to the first poem that I spoke when I was about 3 years old. I don't remember whether it was Jerusalem or Mount Olive, but all things are bright and beautiful. All things are great and small. And the good Lord made them all. That was the first poem that I spoke. But this one I pulled up a few years ago and did for Black History at my church a couple of years ago. The Negro Mother. Children, I come back today to tell you a story of the long, dark way that I had to climb, that I had to know in order that the race might live and grow. Look at my face, dark as night, yet shining like sun with love true light. I am the child they stole from the sand 300 years ago in African land. I am the dark girl who crossed the wide sea, carrying in my body the seed of the free. I am the woman who works in the field, bringing the cotton and the corn to yield. I am the one who labored as a slave, beaten and mistreated for the work that I gave. Children sold away from me, husbands sold too. No safety, no love, no respect was I due. 300 years in the deepest South, but God put a song in my prayer, in my mouth. God put a dream that's like steel in my soul. Now through my children, I'm reaching the goal. Now through my children, young and free, I realize the blessings denied to me. I couldn't read then, and I couldn't write. I had nothing back there in the night. Sometimes the valley was filled with tears, but I kept tugging on through the lonely years. Sometimes the road was hot with sun, but I had to keep on till my work was done. I had to keep on, no stopping for me. I was a seed of the coming free. I nourished the dream that nothing could smother. Deep in my breast, the Negro mother. I had only hope then, but now through you, dark ones of today, my dream must come true. All of the dark children in the world out there, remember my sweat, my pain, and my despair. Remember my years heavy with sorrow, and make of those years a torch of tomorrow. Make of my past a road to the light. Out of the darkness, the ignorance, the night. Lift high my banner out of the dust. Stand like free men supporting my trust. Believe in the right. Let none push you back. Remember that whip and the slaver's trap. Remember how the strong and struggling right still bar you the way and deny you life. But march ever forward, breaking down bars, lift ever upward at the sun and the stars. Oh, my dark children, may my dreams and my prayers impel you forever up the great stair, for I will be with you. No white brother dares keep down my children of the Negro mother. Now, I do think that this poem covers a lot for me, As you all know, I work for the state, and I worked as a system supervisor for many, many days. But every time it came up for me to be supervisor, there was some other way. Somebody else got it. But you know what? Alana, I have a good job with the state. And God has spared me to see it.
If you have any questions, I guess you can raise your hand now.
You went to the March on Washington, and you know, my daddy marched, and daddy worked, he worked for the federal government, and the federal government had told all of the workers that not to march or they would be fired. But daddy and so many of the others actually went, that they, you know, couldn't fulfill that threat. And I just want to know what was the climate like, or, you know, those of you in Richmond that got together and went on the march, what was the climate? What did it feel like for you all?
We had already witnessed, I guess, the students being arrested, and the climate in Richmond had changed to the point that it changed that time when they arrested the kids, because I went to the meeting that night, and Reverend Scott at Fifth Street Baptist Church told the Black people they were moving too fast, but they said, we've got to do something now. And I saw them back up. But Miss Hewitt, my neighbor across the street, she was long before her time. I only went because of her. Her car was broke down, and she didn't have a car at that time. And she had to get to the bus in Henrico. We went with Henrico NAACP. And I spoke with the Waller girl 2 weeks ago, and they went with Richmond NAACP. So NAACP wrote sponsored buses, I guess, all over. And Mrs. Hewlett and I went down to wherever, Bungalow City, where she had moved from, and got on that bus, and we went. And then we went downtown every week and picketed tall numbers.
Okay, I would just like to know, what do you think of the race relation from that time compared to today?
Oh, race relations then was a lot better, because some of us knew our place and we stayed in our place, because even I found out recently that Sammy Shaw and his mother and I were great friends all her life, all my life from the time I met her in 1950, that Sammy was with that group from Virginia Union, but he said they did not even let their parents know that they were involved, because people were losing their jobs if the white people found out that you were involved. I think that the white as well as the Black was much more tolerant. We didn't want trouble, and we didn't want trouble for our children. We got into segregation pretty easily, and everybody survived. Nobody got killed or anything like that. It's a whole lot different. And that's why I keep telling y'all, I don't want to sing "We Shall Overcome," because I've been singing it 40 years and I don't feel like I've overcome a lot, even though some things have been better or some things are better. But the world is just not, it's just meaner. People in the world just don't care anymore. My greatest achievement, my children, of course. My greatest blessing was, they used to tell me at church that the Lord will pour you out a blessing that you won't have room to receive. And he poured me out a blessing that I didn't have one room to receive, because in 1955, I only had one bed and I came up with 2 babies. So that was my blessing. I didn't have room to receive. And I still got that blessing around me.
What was your motivation to being involved with the civil rights movement and some of the political issues in the city of Richmond?
Oh, had I not had so many children, believe me, I would have been deeper involved. I like being on top of the issues. I wish I did have more time to read. I like being the person that know exactly what date that we are going to have election and what date the stuff stops and start, like this week, I think Friday was the last day that you could vote beforehand. But I used to be quite on top of all of that stuff. And I would give anything if I had a different time to read and to continue to be on top of issues. Because I think civic work and politics are very interesting. And I encourage anybody, know what's going on around you. Know what's going on in your city, what's going on in your state. You can ask some people, they probably don't even know who the governor is right now. And then they may come up with, oh, well, he's not worth knowing, but he's still your governor. You could have went to bed last night and he wasn't your governor. You wake up the next morning, whoever wasn't, sometime is.
Do you remember the first time you actually did vote? And what was that experience like?
We were living in Creighton Court, and there was a Mr. Washington who was all, anywhere you move, I don't know, we had some good do-gooders that went around the community and encouraged you to get involved. And Mr. Washington was actually married to Miss Virginia Randolph's sister. So I never met Miss Virginia Randolph, but I did meet her sister. I think her name was Miss Emily. And Mr. Washington used to come out to Creighton Court, encourage us to get involved with these lodges that they had. Things like the 10th, I don't know much about them, but they had a number of different lodges that Black people. I remember Susan, our downtown, with our kids in white in those parades that I can't remember the name of them. But then I said to Mr. Rogers, the twins was babies, Mr. Washington. The twins were babies at that time. So I would say this was beginning of 1956. And I said to Mr. Washington, you see, we're not registered voters yet. So how do we go about becoming? Because I think Mom and them had just begun to start voting. Don't let nobody tell you that they came in doing this stuff or their family had done it all their lives, because that's not true. It's not true. Somebody started somewhere. So I would think by 56 was when 56 was when I went downtown and got registered to vote. And I have voted pretty much ever since and encourage my children as they become of age to get registered and vote.
Hi, Rosetta.
Hey, Florence. They tell me you're there. I don't know where.
Yeah, a question. I think my memory is pretty much like Rosetta's. I remember voting at age 18. I remember picketing and participating in as much as I could. So to get into some of the restaurants that we couldn't sit in and eat at the time, I also remember living in a neighborhood. There was a high school that was all white. So we couldn't go to that high school. They only had certain high schools. And we took the bus past that high school into the city to Dunbar High School. And there were a couple schools at that time that we could go to.
Yeah, but the restaurant deal, even in the 60s, when I worked at Mom's Diner, we did not serve Black people. You worked there and you didn't serve Black people? No. I remember precisely one Saturday morning, a lady came in, a Black lady, and I had to tell her that I couldn't serve her a cup of coffee. And that was in the 60s. Y'all were in Holy Roses by then. That was, y'all born in 56, y'all was in Holy Roses.
When they did integrate the schools, because I know you were, being with the PTAs and being on board with educational changes with all the children, how was that transition when your children started going to the integrated schools, or helping to integrate the schools, I guess I should say?
Well, the first school here that was integrated was Chandler, and it was 11 kids that had registered to go into Chandler. That's on the boulevard. And they actually got out and measured the streets. And Herman Hill, who worked for the VEA, the white teachers organization, and he probably was no more than an errand boy, but they fired him the next morning when they found out his child was one that had registered. 11 kids went to Chandler, but they did get in and out without any incidences for it. It's been some write-up on it recently that they were, of course, called names and thrown at and that sort of thing. But we parents didn't come out fighting. I think we swallowed a lot. I think because we didn't want to ruin things for our children, so we didn't come out fighting. Parenting is a full-time job, and that's what a lot of people of the day have not learned.
So how does it feel to be 92 with all the things you've experienced in life?
God is sparing me to see some things that I didn't have the happiest childhood, first of all. And God has spared me, just like I say, Alana got a good job with the state. All the time that I would put that application in and then go back again, they'd come up, you got to write something else. And they had already picked the person they want to have the job, but they just have you go back doing all this extra stuff, thinking you got a chance. But I worked for the state, and I'm sure they were trying to make me retire. But you know what? Most of those people that they promoted over me are dead and gone. And that's how it feels. I'm still here getting that little check from the state. And when I said little, and I'm not belittling it because I don't have to be here, and it doesn't have to be in my account this weekend. But I'm still here drawing from the state. So that's how it feels good. God has granted me to see a lot of things that will spread a table before you in the presence of your enemies. Okay?
Mom, can you tell about what happened when you worked at Trailways and also University of Richmond?
Okay, working at University of Richmond, I was working the switchboard for $1 an hour, I think it was. And then they put a solicitation on the board right in my office, right before my eyes, and they were paying the students $1.25 an hour.
And what did you do?
And I went to them, my boss, my mini boss, and asked her about it. And seems like they had to pay the children that amount of money in order for them to come up with that, whatever their, I know I can't come up with the right word, that they were getting from their, to go to school.
Student loans.
College folks, y'all know what I'm talking about. But anyway,
Loans.
they refused.
Tuition.
So I just reported them to EEO. And then the day that the man came from Washington to interview University of Richmond, and I was off that day. I think that was election day. I might have worked at the polls or something. Then the next day I was afraid to go back to work. And but they did not say anything to me. And later on, my boss said something to me about being late or whatever. And I said, you haven't been picking on, you've just been picking on me so much here lately. You never said anything before. And you've done it just since those people came out here and checked your record. And so she said, well, you shouldn't have done it. And I said, I just did it to let you know I was smart enough to do it. Yeah, I did report Trailways and University of Richmond to EEO. And they sent somebody from Washington both times. Was a gentleman that came one time, and then later that I had all those papers that they came. But I never did. I mean, I was treated horrible down in Toll Road too, but I never did actually report them. I talked to Bliley one time. He was our congressman, and we were at some gathering, and they asked you to talk to Bliley if you had anything you want to tell him about. And I told him about some negative stuff down on Toll Road, and he just simply said, you know what? They can fire you if they want to, because they don't like the way you part your hair. So in other words, shut up. That's exactly what he said to me.
Didn't you win the case?
Yeah, I got my money, yeah. They had, yeah. Yeah, I got money from what they owed me for that time. But yeah, I got money out of the University of Richmond, and they won't nowhere to go nowhere with, but they, you know, that the time that they owed me, and the same thing about Trailways. I say with Trailways, what happened that I had been paid a certain amount of money, and then a new supervisor came in there and cut my salary back. I think that was what I would, because see, if I'm working somewhere, I will know what's going on. I'm a very resourceful person, and I'm good for any business because I'm gonna know what's going on, and I'm gonna do what I can to help people. Even when I worked at People's Drugstore, one of my customers said to me one time that somebody had said to her, I like that lady up there that will go out of her way to make sure that you get what you were looking for. So I'm very resourceful. Like you can go in a food line store now and ask for a time dispatch, and those cashiers don't even know what you're talking about. They don't know that Richmond Time Dispatch is the only paper, is our regular paper here in Richmond. They don't know that. I've experienced it.
What is it that you want to do next?
My oldest great-granddaughter, and she says she wants me to celebrate my birthday in November at her house. So that's the next thing I want to do. That you all can do anything for me is pray that I make it.
I have a question about your about political involvement. If you working on I guess campaigns for folks running for political office, or you know, any strategizing. And I know you have some relatives that were actually held office.
Oh, I was with both of them when they started. They wouldn't yeah. I remember going to Doug Wilder's office when he wasn't even thinking about getting in politics. And went through St. Voters. I didn't miss any of those meetings, was heavily involved, got out and worked on election day. When we were working for nothing, I was just 6 o'clock in the morning. Went all day long, took refreshments to the workers. That was outside. Then I got inside as a judge, a head judge. I got inside just in time because that first time I worked, I met Harry. So I got in there just in time as a head judge. Harry came in the vote. He had just come back from Vietnam on Saturday, and I met him on Tuesday. And basically, I can say we were together 42 years from that day forward.
And what did he say to you?
Well, What did he say
What
to
did
me?
he tell you to write? What did he say?
Oh, he just asked me, did I know what people do with sample ballots? And I said, what? He said, they put their name and address on it. So that was the beginning of a beautiful thing. Yeah, but I worked with everybody, everybody came along in the early days of politics. They seeked us out, people that were involved, that they knew were involved. If you work with the Crusader Voters, you were involved. So they seeked us out to make sure that our name was attached to their goings on. But I've helped a lot of people get elected here in the city. But like I say, I kind of eased up after that, after Harry came into my life.
So I have a question. In the introduction, I mentioned that you were a member of the Richmond, the Huguenot Women's Republican organization, and it was another organization. What made you join those organizations, and were you a registered Republican?
Yes, I went to work. When they asked us to go to work at the polls, you were appointed by a Republican or a Democrat. And some people that got appointed as a Republican, they did not work because they didn't want Republican attached to their name. And I remember Mrs. Cunningham saying to me, what difference does it make? You're gonna get that $25 a day. I would work for Khrushchev if it was paid $50 a day. So I mean, $10 a day. They started off working. They sure got their job at Fairmount School. They were only making $10 a day as the head judge. And I think by the time I got it, and that would have been 7 to 4. By the time I got appointed as head judge, and I had some other people appointed, and I asked them why didn't they report for work, and they said, well, it said Republican, and I'm a Democrat. Well, it didn't matter who I was, I got that job. And then after that, yes, I was classified as a Republican and didn't mind classifying myself as a Republican. But then y'all would have killed me if I hadn't voted for Mr. Obama. And there again, I got it just in time before number 45 came. So that's another time that I got it in time. Because I would not have been gluing my name to 45 at all.
What do you want to say to us young people like myself?
Jackie, I think about that a lot. And I hope in my expression, like this time for my older grandsons and sons, I gave out handkerchiefs. That's something that we were taught as growing up, that every well-dressed, well-cared for young man always had a clean handkerchiefs. So that was one of the reasons I decided this year that I would give all my grandsons and great-grandsons a pack of handkerchiefs. And I hope they'll remember me for that, for doing that. Some of them I've heard from, some of them I haven't. But nevertheless, I gave each of them 6 handkerchiefs. What really put the cap on the top, I don't know whether y'all saw Mr. Our president or not, wipe his nose with a dirty tissue and put it back in his pocket. So Sister, what's the name? Jill Biden got to do better than that by the man. And the other part of that, I don't know whether y'all saw it or not, but our president was right on top of it last week, and I didn't miss a word that he said. And as far as what about the my children, Jackie, it comes to me every day something else to write down that I would like my children to know. They'll find a lot of stuff in my house when I go.
Miss Rosetta, this is Andrea, and I just want to thank you for your inspiration of being an entrepreneur into your 80s. You had your bake stand right out in front of my law office for many years, and it was always such an inspiration. Plus, I love the cookies.
She said, plus she loved your cookies.
Doing that, market was one of the things that I enjoyed the most of my life. I just wish I had longer to do it, and now I can't bake it all. The hands are bad.
Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for accepting my invitation. You know, I always tell my children that we have heroes and all to admire in our family, and we just need to honor them and acknowledge them and know our story and tell the story. So we really appreciate you spending this time with us, Rosetta. We really do appreciate it.
Jackie, I want to thank you for asking me. And you know, my first thing is always to say no. And then after I think about it a minute, and then I'm always complaining that nobody ever asked me to do anything. But then I remember back the times that I've said no about things that I could have done. Thank you so much for asking me, and thank all of you all for listening in.